Okay, we're on page 2 of Module 7, Quiz 1. So the last 3 problems. First one wants us to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form means y equals mx plus b. So in order to write an equation in that form, we need m and we need b. So the first thing you should write here is m equals rise over run. Because if you remember, we learned back in Module 6, anytime you're doing the slope, you want to make sure that you have, when you have a picture, a graph, you want to use the formula rise over run. And then the other thing you want is the y-intercept, because whatever the y-intercept is, that y-coordinate is going to become your b. So whatever you get here will be put in place of m. Whatever you get here will be put in place of b. So we have this point here, and you can see they're going by 3. So I can see the y-intercept is 0, 3. So I know that this is going to be 3, right? Then I have to find another point. And remember when we were doing this earlier in Module 7, we said you have to find a point that's exactly on a corner. No, no, yes. No, no, yes. And so when you find points that are exactly on the vertices, then you can start counting from left to right. Rise 2, run 3. Rise 2, run 3. And so we can see the rise is 2, the run is 3. It should be positive as we found because the line is rising. So now I know my m, and now I'm ready to write the equation. Y equals 2/3 x plus 3. And there we have it. So you just, when you see this, you have to think, oh, I have a graph. That means from the graph, I need to find the slope and the y-intercept. So you just read those right off the graph. Okay, next we have write this equation in slope-intercept form. And this may seem like a really easy problem, but so many sign errors, division errors are made on this problem. So you really want to be careful when it tells you to put it in slope-intercept form. That's another way of saying get y alone. So we need to do the opposite to move everything else to the other side. So to get y alone, I usually cover it up just so I don't touch it. And I need to do the opposite. So subtract 1x, subtract 1x. So that's gone. And I put the 1 in front because remember, this is going to be part of the slope. So you want to know what the fraction is going to be or the whole number. So when I'm moving it over, I do add the 1 in. So then I get 4y, and then we learned it in Module 6 to switch the order here. So keep the sign with it. So that would be negative 1x and positive 12. And this next step, a lot of people that don't put the 1 there, they put 4 underneath, and then all of a sudden they move it up and make it negative 4x. Do not do that, because this is multiplication, so you need to divide. That 4 stays in the denominator. It does not jump up and go in front of the x. So what we have now in slope-intercept form, because remember, slope-intercept just means get y alone, so our y is alone. We get negative 1/4 x and plus 3. Oops. And so that's the first question they say, write the equation in slope-intercept form. And the second thing they say is identify the slope. So slope is m, so we'll use that letter. So m is -1 over +4. There's my slope. So that one's not so bad, right? Like I said, when I'm grading this as an in-class quiz, I notice a lot of sign errors. And then students dividing by 4 and then putting that 4 up there and write y equals -4x plus 3. Can't do that. It's in the denominator. It stays in the denominator, I think. And then there were a couple people I remember last semester who left the 4 in it and said this was a slope and this was a y-intercept. They didn't divide by 4, but you have to get y completely alone before you can read the slope and y-intercept. Okay, so now it says take that line from A above and graph it. So anytime you want to graph, remember you have to have your y-intercept and your rise over run. So they should be right here for us, right? So our y-intercept is 0 over 3. And our slope, which is rise over run, is -1. And as we learned earlier in Module 7, that bottom number is positive. So you might want to put the little plus sign there just to remind you, I always run forward so I don't trip. So we are now ready to graph that line. Let's graph it in a brighter color so we can see it. So 0, 3 is our y-intercept. And from that point, we go down 1, run forward 4 so we don't trip. And I can't do it anymore, so let's go backwards. So the opposite of down 1 and right 4 would be up 1 and left 4. Just so we have 3 points, because on, I would say, every test you take from here on out, whether it's a computer test, pencil paper test, they're going to ask you to graph at least 3 points. So then we get our straight edge. And that is part of the points on a paper pencil test, is using a straight edge and not just drawing in some random unstraight line. So that's part of the points, is using a straight edge and putting arrows on both ends. So those were both built into our rubric for these problems when they were paper pencil. 1 point for a straight line using a straight edge, 1 point for the arrows, because lines do go on indefinitely in both directions. And every single problem you saw on this quiz today is on your Module 7 test. So very good problems to study before you take your test on Monday. Okay, I'll see you in quiz 2 in a little bit.